Welcome to Native Exiles, Alderwood Community Church's podcast, where we talk about following Jesus in the tension of being in the world, but not of it. And we have a bonus episode for you today. This is content from a seminar that was done by Dr. Gregory Jantz. And what we're talking about in this seminar is anxiety. We're in the midst of a mental health crisis. Dr. Jantz is a leading figure in the world of mental health. He's a follower of Jesus and an expert on anxiety, and he has a lot to share with us. I think this is really going to bless you. And certainly, I know that you know people who need this content as well. Let's jump in.
So with anxiety being this top diagnosis, a lot of people are suffering. And when I think of anxiety, there's an anxiety that happens when something outside of our control happens, and it's scary. It's a situational anxiety. A medical diagnosis could be that. You receive some information, and all of a sudden, your world was shattered. And sometimes this could be something somebody else did, a medical diagnosis for you, but something happened, or using the pandemic, we're told something bad's gonna happen, and then everybody all at once gets afraid and goes to Costco and buys toilet paper. Right? Fear drives us to do something. And I remember it was one of our local news stations that was interviewing people at Costco. And maybe you remember this one because it was a classic. The reporter said, "Why are you buying all the toilet paper?" Because later it was toilet paper and paper towels. And guess what the answer was? This is probably a paraphrase. "Well, I don't know, but everybody else is. So I better come and get mine." So that's what fear does. Fear and anxiety tosses out all reason. Now, another type of anxiety is the kind of anxiety that we know it's coming. It's predictable. We know that this is going to be a difficult situation. Maybe you were asked to do something that creates anxiety. You already know, and it's temporary, and you do it, and you walk through it. Okay? We all have that. So let me just say, anxiety can be pretty normal. I had some things that happened totally out of my control, and it was anxiety, and it affected for a couple weeks my sleep, and I'm reading my verses out loud to myself, and I'm praying, and I'm resetting my mind and my spirit, and so we all have this, and the different types of anxiety. So look at it this way: anxiety is like a virus. If you walk into a room and a person is very anxious, it's like anxiety radiates off of them. Have you had that? This person is anxious, it's coming off of them. It's like you feel it. You can't necessarily see it, but you feel the fear. Fear is powerful. Fear has that ripple effect, and fear is like a virus. It's catchy. People catch it. You're fearful, you can create fear the next person that's around you, and everybody's afraid. So keep that in mind as you think about anxiety. How is anxiety different than worry? Worry is mental, and I can do a lot of what if I didn't wear the right clothes? What if I didn't say the right thing? You're doing all the what ifs. That's worry. You get enough what ifs going, ruminating over and over, enough what ifs, you can create anxiety. Anxiety means I start to have a physiological response. Anxiety, where do you feel anxiety? You feel it in most people point initially to their gut. And it's like as though it radiates from there. So anxiety, that's when the heart rate goes up, pulse goes up, sweaty palms. Blood flow changes in the brain with anxiety. So this is our prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that we're supposed to be making good decisions. And it's the prefrontal cortex. So this is a really important part of the brain. Sometimes it's called the wise mind. It's where you supposed to make good decisions. Anxiety, that on a scale of 1 to 10, and when it starts to hit a 7, 8, the blood flow, and you can actually see this with brain scans, the blood flow predominantly is going back to the more primitive part of the brain, the fight or flight. And so now it's even more difficult to make a decision because the blood flow in my brain is different. And I feel one of two things. I'm froze, or I become really impulsive. And I start to do things impulsively. So we need to understand what effects does anxiety have on our physiology. Then, probably pretty important to understand that fear or anxiety can really have a spiritual side. I have seen situations, as maybe some of you have experienced, where you go, this feels like an attack from the enemy. This feels different. Something's going on. And you feel it. There is a spiritual attack. And that's why when we address anxiety, we have to address the whole person. So my verse I wrote down to share was, of course, Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the ruler of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So there is a spiritual side. So when I talk about anxiety, you need to know that I'm also thinking about spiritually what could be going on as well. What's the spiritual solution? Now, post-pandemic, which is, I guess, where we are now, psychologists came up with a term that we're seeing more and more to describe what's happening, and particularly with our youth. It's called foreshortened future. What? Foreshortened future. So, again, this is not me saying this. This is probably said out of a lack of spiritual understanding. But foreshortened future means that people are feeling there's not hope for their future. They have a shortened future. What are we dealing with our youth so often? Apathy towards their future. It doesn't matter. And there's a lot of apathy. And also we live in a death culture. There's a lot of focus on death. And kind of an evil focus in that regard. So we take and we look at what is happening to people. Anxiety levels are at the highest. And foreshortened future. I don't feel like I have a good future. People are more apathetic. So let's talk about this. And you can switch a slide. We're going to run through these. So since you're going to get these and ask for these and email me for them, I'm not going to just read the slides. I'm just going to walk through a few highlights because you'll have these later. But I've already said it's the most common form. And they're putting anxiety as a mental disorder. I don't know that I would always put it that way. When somebody comes to us, one of our doctors generally will do blood work, and we want to know what's going on, because that's how God made us. What's going on in the body's physiology? Oh, so hormonally, things are way off. What's the first thing a person's going to have? Anxiety, depression. Oh, thyroid is low. What are you going to experience? Anxiety. Oh, my gut, which is sometimes referred to as the second brain. My gut's not manufacturing the levels of healthy bacteria that produce the serotonin for my brain and the dopamine, those chemicals for our brain. My gut's not functioning well. And that's going to affect. So we're going to look at everything going on inside because we want to have an understanding. Maybe that's not the sole reason, but maybe it's a big reason that's amplifying the anxiety. So when somebody says to you, oh, I'm anxious, it may not all just be in their head, right? It really can be from various outside or inward influences. There is at times we find a person with severe food allergies. I'll use gluten intolerance. And the way their body is processing or not processing, it throws off a lot of anxiety in the body. That's why we have dietitians who look at what's going in the mouth. And I have permission to share this one with you, but we worked with a gentleman who was one of those work from home. And as far as work was, I would say from that vantage point, was highly successful. But he had a long, long history of severe anxiety and depression and had been on probably every medication. Because you go in, share with the doctor, and you've 15 minutes, you got the new prescription, you go get it filled, you go, oh, first week I feel better, this is better. Not great, but better. And then time passes and you realize, oh, this is not working like I wanted it to work. I'm not doing as well. That's typically the pattern with anxiety and at times depression medication. So all the years of him seeking help, seeking counseling, one question that was never ever asked was, what do you put in your mouth? What do you mean? So we had him do a food diary. Show me every beverage, everything that you put in your mouth. This was, I think, for 7 or 10 days. And so before starting with us, we asked him to do that. And in looking at his food diaries, it said 10 pots of coffee a day. Pots. And actually, he clarified, well, it's 10 to 12 pots of coffee a day. I don't know how you can do even 10 pots of coffee a day. And so I sought clarification. I go, you mean cups, right? Cups? He goes, no, it's the home pot. It's the smaller ones. What's a home pot of coffee make? 12, 14 cups of coffee? He was drinking on an average 10 of those a day. Forgot about water, forgot about anything else. That's all he was doing. Would you feel good at doing 10 pots of home-brewed coffee a day? How about 1 pot? This is how he had been living for years. He said, well, I didn't just start with 10 pots or 12. He said, I worked myself up to that over time. And that was his beverage, obviously his beverage of choice. Did he have some severe anxiety? Oh my goodness. Was a pill going to take care of that? No. So when we first, and he started with us, how do you get a person off of 10, 12 pots of coffee a day? Okay, a cup of coffee, bottle of water. Cup of coffee, bottle of water. Might have spent a lot of time in the bathroom. The caffeine, what we know in high amounts like that, rinses out and disturbs our B vitamin production that happens in our gut. We manufacture a lot of our B, we're supposed to, our B vitamins in our healthy bacteria. So his body and his digestion obviously was not giving the brain what it needed. And I've never, ever seen a case like that one since. He holds the record. But that's why it's important to go, okay, I'm suffering from anxiety. What am I putting in my mouth that could be? If I'm anxious, what kinds of food do I like? Somebody said ice cream. I usually like sweet and smooth. If I'm anxious, just notice when I feel anxious, am I going towards the sweet and smooth foods? Oftentimes we are. And when I'm anxious, I either want to eat all the time or I don't eat at all. Because food is a way of helping me cope. Food's a way of self-medicating. So I'm just giving you some ideas. And let me say, anxiety can be so miserable is an understatement. Anxiety can be so disempowering that you feel like at times, the intensity of it, that I'm losing my mind. It feels that way. And your sleep is usually disruptive, either falling asleep or some will fall asleep with anxiety, but they wake up an hour later and they can't get back to sleep. And you have these incredibly restless, anxiety-producing nights. Your body, oftentimes with anxiety during the night, you're sweating, your body is burning, and you like nothing is restful. And you get up in the morning and you go, I don't think I even rested. So anxiety robs us of our sleep cycle and the stages of sleep that you need to have in order to feel rested and restored. So again, anxiety affects the whole person. Let's look at the various forms of anxiety. We'll do the next slide. And probably the next slide, since you're going to get all these. Oh, this was, okay, here are the different kinds. Do I sound different? Am I okay? Better. Good. Okay, different types of anxiety, just for us to be aware of. Generalized anxiety, GAD. That sounds fun, doesn't it? GAD. Generalized anxiety. This is free-floating anxiety. I just carry it with me wherever I go. I just feel a little anxious. I'm anxious around people. I'm anxious when I wake up. And usually you don't know why. You go, why? I don't know, I just feel this way. And you carry it with you. And it almost becomes normal. It's just that general anxiety. It's not normal, but you've lived that way for a long time. Now, maybe in the workplace you've been asked to do something that produces a little anxiety, or you have a deadline and you feel some anxiety. Those would be normal, as long as it's not paralyzing us. And anxiety is a problem if it's interfering with our daily functioning. Anxiety is a problem if it's robbing us of a sense of peace or joy. If you go, generally, I'm a pretty happy person. I wake up, I'm usually ready for my days. I feel pretty good. Yeah, I feel like God's in my life. And you go, but with this anxiety, it's like I can't shake it off. It's like when you're struggling with depression, and this is what if you could get rid of it, you would. And this is that kind of anxiety. Okay, after a while, you want to escape. And this is where it can get really touchy, because it's like, I call it mood elevate. I want to change how I'm feeling. I'm so tired of feeling this way. What do I do to mood elevate? I jump into social media. I lose myself in the digital world. That could be a form of self-medication. I drink alcohol. And I go, I just need that to go to sleep. But it doesn't really work. And alcohol robs you of, it decreases time you spend in the REM stage, the restorative part of, and when the brain detoxifies, alcohol decreases that, so that doesn't work. Food's a big one. But I start to look for escapism behaviors. When my anxiety has been with me long enough, I've had it, and I start to look for escapism. And sometimes then I start to isolate. When I'm anxious, I don't want to be with people. So the next one on our list is social anxiety. Now this can stand alone. Something could have happened, and now you feel anxious with people. You need distance. We saw this a lot. And by the way, anxiety levels during COVID were different depending on which state you lived in. That's profound. Some states, heavy fear. Other states, go to Idaho and it was normal, right? It depended where you were and what the messages were, how you were being affected with fear and anxiety. But we, here, where we lived, we started to see folks who developed a lot of social anxiety, and with the kids, with the students. I remember we worked with a lady who said, okay, when I could finally get out and got in my car, but if the farther I got away from home, the more my anxiety raised. And for the longest time, she couldn't go farther than a mile from her home. Anxiety. Where did that come from? It was conditioned. We can condition you to be a very anxious person by things we tell you. If we can create fear by our words, by saying things that may or may not be true, we can condition people with fear. And remember, fear, why do you think the great toilet paper craze emerged out of Seattle? We had a lot of fear coming down. People were freaking out. Go one state over and it was a different story. One state over from us, people were going, what? What, are you kidding me? So, our environment matters as it relates to fear and anxiety. But social anxiety, this one's been on the increase. If I spend a lot of time in social media, what happens? I'm anxious and I'm doom scrolling, and first of all, we underestimate the amount of time we spend. It's like asking a person, an alcoholic, how many beers did you have last night? I had 2, but the reality was it was 2 6-packs. You ask the person social media escapism behavior. Okay, so how long were you on? Maybe a max, maybe 45 minutes. You look at their phone and it said 3 hours. We lose track of time when we're doing escapism behaviors, and we lose track of what we're doing. So, all right, post-traumatic stress disorder is a form of anxiety. Post-traumatic stress disorder, we used to think, is it only related to vets? And I can tell you today, the book I wrote, Triumph Over Trauma, is all about recovery from trauma in our life. And sometimes it emerges much later, that we don't even realize where it was connected to. It disrupts our sleep, our sense of self. Sometimes there's people that have severe abuse and there is flashbacks. Things feel like I'm losing control. I may be afraid to go to sleep. So a lot is wrapped into post-traumatic stress. I may find that I need to figure out how to self-medicate because it's so uncomfortable. Anxiety is really, really uncomfortable. We will feel driven to do something about it. And as human beings, we don't always make the best choice there. All right, panic disorder. Worked with a gentleman that And any story I tell you, I have permission, so I just don't tell the stories. But he was on I-5 heading towards downtown Seattle. He was in a middle lane, and he describes that all of a sudden, his vision went blurry. He broke out into this incredible sweat. It felt like his heart was pounding out of his chest. He couldn't hardly focus. And he was trying to get over to the side of the road before the exit to the Space Needle there. And he made it over and just sitting there. He thought he was having a heart attack. He was having a panic attack. And that panic was such that once it breaks and starts going, it's pretty hard to reverse it. But he said, after I was really sweaty and I was catching my breath, but after 15 minutes, I was okay. I was still alive. That's a panic attack. The fear of the fear is what's so great about a panic attack. If you've had a panic attack, or sometimes people say, I had an anxiety attack. So the fear of the fear, because it's so frightening, because it does feel like you're going to die. You're not, but it sure feels that way. And the panic attack, you feel like I've totally lost control. What I usually tell, and the panic attack is also a sign, okay, your body physically is really crying out. Your body is telling you it's had enough. And so we need to figure out, what are we going to do to care for your body physiologically as well? Because the panic attacks, the body is just, it's rebellious. It can't handle it anymore. It's like the break in the dam. But the panic attacks are so uncomfortable. And maybe a few days pass and you go, I think I'm okay. That was weird. I think I'm all right. And then the panic seems to strike at the most odd times. You're driving, you're out to dinner, and it hits you. And usually it hits you and you know, oh, I know what's coming. And 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe a max of 30, it passes and you realize, I'm okay. Or I think I'm okay. Are you guys okay? Are you really glad you came? Don't worry, there's good news in the second hour. I just wanted us to identify the different forms we don't always think of that are anxiety. Obsessive compulsive disorder. What comes to your mind? Hand washing, maybe? Rechecking a lock? Going through some kind of a ritual where I have to check this lock. I walk down the hall, I do this window, and okay, I think I got it all covered. And then I think I'll go to bed now. Oh, no. I've got to check again. And that's why I say it's a ritual. And you go back and you do the same thing again. Temporarily, it relieves some anxiety. Oh, okay, I'm better. And then, oh no, I got to go check again. That's a form of anxiety disorder. Okay? I know I keep using pandemic or COVID as some examples. A part of the reason because I'm still seeing people suffer. I'm still seeing the effects from 5 years ago. I'm seeing people seek help, and things started happening with them in that time period. Things they didn't normally have an issue with started. They've tried to cope. Time has passed, but it's not going away. So obsessive compulsive disorder was one of the fastest growing types of anxiety post-COVID. Now, why would that be? Think about it for a minute. We were told nowhere was safe. Nowhere was safe. Nothing was safe. we couldn't disinfect things enough. We couldn't get it clean enough. Nothing was safe. And so some people still are that way. Even when we told, no, the COVID virus doesn't survive on a table or a glass or silverware. That doesn't work that way. That's not true. It doesn't. Oh no, I got to check. That's OCD. All right. Next page. All right. I'm going to give you these checklists. Now, I also put a new anxiety quiz test that we created that covers a lot of this, and it's on the website aplaceofhope.com. It's free, it's totally confidential, and you'll go to the tab. I think the tab says mental health test. But take the anxiety test, and yes, you can take it for somebody else, like things I've noticed in another person. But just, yeah, tell your spouse, I'm taking this test, and I'm just going to check off all the things I see in you. We'll see what your score is. If your score is high, you're going for help. But sometimes we need to go, oh, here are all the symptoms. I didn't realize it was so much. This is why I'm suffering. But, we just need to gather more information. So this is some of the symptoms that this whole generalized anxiety, again, we're going to give this to you. One that we don't always think of, people who are anxious have a lot of fatigue. I mentioned trouble sleeping, the night sweats, irritability. I recently had love working with people in ministry. Recently had a pastor who was coming for anxiety, coming from another state, the state of Colorado. No, we can understand why he had anxiety. The first state to legalize cannabis. Colorado is in a mess, big time. Mental health issues and other things. So he goes, Denver International Airport, some of you have been there, and gets on the plane for his flight to come here. They're taxiing away, and he's having a full-blown panic attack. They don't know what's going on. They think maybe he's having a heart attack, so it's a medical emergency. The plane taxis back. They get him off the plane. He receives some medical attention. A few hours passed. He rebooks his flight to come. I gotta make it from Colorado to Seattle. I gotta make it. So he rebooks. And again, he's not fully he knows he's anxious, but he's not fully understanding what's going on. Nearly an exact repeat happens again. And the plane taxis back 2 times in a row with a couple hours difference. So we're talking on the phone about what's going on. He goes, I'm not normally afraid of flying. I don't know what it is. I'm not functioning. So I said, let's change this up a bit. Have you eaten anything? No. Not anything. Have you drank anything? No. Not even water. Okay, I want you to go get a bottle of water, and we're going to pick a person in your life that's going to get on the plane with you and fly with you. And when you get here, we're going to have a plan for you, but we got to get you here. His wife, and I think this was the following day, gets on the plane with him, make sure that he has good, adequate protein in the morning. No, I didn't want him having any caffeine, just good source of protein, balance the blood sugar levels a bit. His wife gets on the plane. He does have some anxiety. It's not all pretty, but he's able to keep going. No turning back. Makes it to here and was with us for 4 weeks. And one of the things that can happen is a lot of things with fear and anxiety happens in our digestive system. Anxiety went right to his digestion. Usually it's diarrhea. I can't control anything, and it just takes over, or I'm afraid that's going to happen. And so, usually when you're afraid of it, oftentimes it does happen. Now, he had been going through a very stressful time at the church for months. And he was worried they were going to get rid of him, which was not the case. But his sleeping, he was not sleeping at all. And sleep will make any anxiety, it'll give you anxiety, but it'll make every symptom, it'll magnify it. And he was believing things that weren't true. And so it almost is like you become disconnected from reality. You think things are happening that are not. And that's what anxiety lies to you. So if there's a single point I want you to care, anxiety lies to us. Fear lies. It tells us we can't do it. Fear tells us that something bad's going to happen. Fear is a tool that I think spiritually, obviously the enemy uses fear. And so often it's just the opposite of what we think. So remember, anxiety lies to us. That's why we got to go to God's word. That's why we got to go to what is the truth here. And just understanding that can help a great deal. Okay, we're going to go just about 10 minutes and we're going to do a break and then we'll come back with the good news. Next one. Children and teens. Why do we have so many 13-year-olds that have been diagnosed with anxiety? So many 13-year-olds. What's going on? Hormones? That could be part of it, absolutely. Many times it'll be social media influences, social or bully behavior, cyber bully behavior. What is the degree of sexually oriented content that's even in social media? And does social media look like everybody's having the best life ever? And in 3 seconds, can I change and put on a filter, which I look incredible? Social media lies to us. It's not always the truth. What's the first thing that we do on social media, or a young person does? Compare. It's automatic. Oh, her life is so much better. Instant comparison. When we compare, do we feel better or worse about ourselves? We feel worse. So this is part of it. And the number one search engine for our 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, where do they get their information? They don't Google. They're using little AI right now, but where are they getting most of their information? TikTok. Used to be, if I asked that question a couple years ago, it'd be YouTube. No, it's not YouTube anymore. TikTok. Where do they self-diagnose? TikTok. I can watch a 30-second video and I know my problem. Oh, good, and I have a label for it. Mom, Dad, look what you did to me. This is my problem. It's right here. Right? I mean, that's what's happening. There is a trend in the social media. There's a leaning out there, you'll see it, where parents are made to be the bad guy. It's the parent's fault for everything. There is a leaning towards that. So kids are learning to blame others early on, and I get my diagnosis. See, Mom, I'm borderline. Borderline is a bad diagnosis, and it's because of how you raised me. They have it all figured out. 30 seconds of information. And that really, I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but that's kind of what's happening. So we're using the wrong tools, or our kids are, for self-diagnosis. And for treatment. In 30 seconds to learn what I should be doing. What's the general recommendation? You need to take a pill. Have your parents take you to the pediatrician or to your doctor and show them this. This is what's wrong, and there's a pill for it. Brought to you by such and such pharmaceutical. Okay, that's what's happening. So I'm just saying, our kids, 13, 14 seems to be a big area where anxiety is peaking. A lot of things going on in that age, I get it. So, and then there can be, during this time, there's all the gender issues. And then people are telling them things, and then it's like, well, maybe God didn't. Maybe I'm supposed to be something else. And self-doubt's put in. There's a lot of that going on. All right, next page. We've talked about post-traumatic stress disorder, and let me just say, I look at that, there's mild to quite severe. And we have worked with people who are very afraid to fall asleep because the nightmares are so horrible that they're afraid to go to sleep. And so they will avoid sleep at all cost, or they'll do something like drink a bunch of alcohol so they'll pass out and won't remember anything. So just seeing more of that. Next one. Yep. I know that might be a little small print for you guys. That's why you'll get the slides. Social anxiety. Yeah, we've covered most of that pretty well. Panic disorder. We've covered that. Nice. Let me just point out, panic attacks normally begin suddenly, without warning. I've mentioned car, mall, but so often a panic attack, A panic attack happens in a public place. I'll fix this during break. But a panic attack happens in a public place. And that's why we're so afraid of it. And it feels really, really shameful. So I have a couple folks I know, and I know I pulled out the old 3x5 card earlier today, who before going in a situation that they feel could cause them panic, not only do they pray, but they take their verse cards, and they're out in their car reading it out loud and saying, okay, here I go. And they plead, it's like we're pleading the blood of Jesus over, and they're going to face something that could be very, very difficult for them. The more times they do that, the stronger that they realize they really are. And they are. And we have to practice. If we avoid, isolate, move away, decide, nope, I'm too anxious, I'm not doing that, it will increase the anxiety. I have to find a way to walk through anxiety. It's there, but I have to find a way to walk through it. And I have to walk through it every time. Now, I want to know, all right, is there any trauma? Is there anything in my past? Do I have unforgiveness? As we talked about this morning, are there other things going on in my life that are a buildup that's creating all this anxiety? Am I drinking 20 cups of coffee a day? Am I living on energy drinks? Am I ODing on sugar? What am I doing that could be amplifying all the symptoms? Do I have a good sleep routine? Have I been able to reestablish a circadian rhythm where my sleep is a rhythm? And maybe I'm waking up. So I had this thing for a while. I was going through a tough time. I would wake up at the same time every night. Have you ever done that? It's like the same time. My wife, who is so smart, said, this has been going on. It's like a month. You're waking up at the same time, no matter what time you go to bed. She goes, have you looked at the verses in the Bible that coincide with that time? I go, no, sweetheart, I haven't. She goes, I'm going to write them out for you. It's really interesting. Sometimes there are spiritual battles that are fought at night. And I got to tell you, I was so empowered by 3 verses that fit for the situation. I go, okay, I don't know that God's waking me up, but I'm waking up at the same time. I know what to do now. And Lord God, can I go a little longer? Can we change the verse as I get this and go a little longer? Can it be 4:12 instead of 2:12? Right? So sometimes my point is, sometimes there's a reason. It can be a reason. People who have had addiction issues in their life, we know that there's a cycle that the liver goes through at night. The doctors that work for us explain this, but that the certain time, liver detox, and it sometimes wakes people up. Oh, and that's going to probably last, approximately this long. Okay, got it. So sometimes there's explanations for what's going on. Remember, anxiety lies. It tells you something's terribly wrong with you when there's usually a reason for it. So don't believe the lie. Let's do this. Can we do a little stretch? Now, here's what's funny. I was told that there's we have a break and there's cookies. So if you have not had your daily allotment of sugar, enjoy a cookie. And we want to come back, Pastor Wyatt. We're going to come back in 10 minutes and let's get to some good solutions and ideas, shall we? Okay.
Welcome back. We're going to get going. If you're still out in the lobby, come in and join us. And I hope you enjoy these snacks. They are so good. And then I hope you felt just a little bit guilty eating them after what we learned in the last hour. So not too much, but just a little bit. So, all right. Greg, thank you very much.
All right. You got it. Thank you, Wyatt. Are you guys doing okay? Well, thanks for coming back. Can we do a little Q&A? We'll save some time for just questions. Because usually if you have a question, it means somebody else did too. And I want you to know that I really do believe there are whole person solutions to anxiety. I do see it. After my wife had went through chemo, she was trying to get her brain back. She started doing puzzles, 1,000-piece puzzles, right? Now, I'm not a guy that has the patience to do a puzzle. Probably didn't do a puzzle since kindergarten. But there we have a puzzle table, and she will put together a 1,000-piece puzzle pretty quick. So why do you do this? Why do you do that? She says, it's helping my brain come back. I go, well, keep doing it. It's good. It's really good. Keep doing it. But there's always missing pieces to the puzzle as we look at anxiety. I am sincere when I say we pray, we ask God to show us what are the missing pieces to my puzzle that I need to know about. What is it that I need to, and so I'm going to pray for wisdom that I need to have in order to have recovery, in order to live differently. Because we have so much in His Word that talks about giving over our anxieties. So show me, Lord, what is the missing pieces to my puzzle? Sometimes in our desperation, we say, Lord, deliver me from this, which can be an appropriate prayer. But we just over and over, deliver me from this. Okay. Lord God, show me what I need to know to have healing and recovery. What do you want me to learn from this? What are the missing pieces to my puzzle? Help me understand that. It's just a different way of praying about it. And I'm always amazed when people come and tell me, just praying about this in a different way, I really started to hear God, and there are some things I've been avoiding. And I didn't realize the unforgiveness in my heart. I didn't realize the trauma. I didn't realize that when I had that medical diagnosis and my system lived in shock for a couple of years. So my point is, there is a solution and it will come. Don't lose hope. I have seen people suffering from anxiety for many, many years, and they think it's a part of who they are, that they have to live that way. I don't believe that. There's always missing pieces to the puzzle. All right, we're going to go kind of quickly as we look at this. Obsessive compulsive disorder as it relates, think of obsession, okay? That is the thought, I'm obsessed. I keep recycling it, okay? And the obsession, the compulsion's the behavior I have to do. There are people that believe that I have to do something in a certain order in order for it to be okay. I have to only read a certain version of the Bible, or otherwise God will not speak to me. That's OCD. I have to pray in a certain way. So we can spiritualize this, and then that represents bondage. OCD is a bondage to a set of lies that we believe we have to do in order to be okay. Is there times where, if it's door checking, is there a time where it might be appropriate to check a door? Yeah. It doesn't mean I get up 10 times during the night and check the door. That's not appropriate. So sometimes we start to live in a way, and we call it normal, where it's not normal. The obsessions typically intrude when we're trying to think or do other things. Have you ever tried to read your Bible and suddenly you start having intrusive thoughts? And you feel like, I got to get up and do something? Okay, that can be an example. All right, I just want to make sure the obsessive compulsive is clear. Next one. Okay, let's mention specific phobias. What's arachnophobia? Fear of spiders. Okay. There's a whole long list of phobias. Usually something has happened that reinforces that fear. We had a gal who worked in downtown Seattle, and she rode an elevator every day. She had been stressed out, burned out, weary, going through some significant stress in her life. Wouldn't you know it, the elevator stops. I don't know what floor she worked, but she didn't make it to her floor. And you pick up the phone in the elevator. Yes, some time passed, and yes, they came and fixed it. She got off. That was really uncomfortable, but I'm okay. The next morning, she goes to the same building towards the same elevator, and she goes to push the button. What happens? And feels the heart rate go up. I can't get on this elevator. This is weird. Feeling some mild panic. The building had some escalators, so she did the escalators. That was a little uncomfortable, but okay, I did it. And then as time progressed, because her situation she was faced with in life hadn't changed, she couldn't get on the escalator. It was like 2 stories, that's it. 2 stories, and my knees are wobbling, and I'm freaking out. I can't go above 2 stories. I can't even get to my job. I can't make it. That was the point that she realized I needed help, and that's the point we started working with her. Now, sometimes there's a triggering event that causes something to happen. In her case, that's what happened, being stuck in an elevator. It's no fun. But she was going through other things in life that were very stressful and very traumatic that she saw no end to. And had a situation at home where there was addiction, a lot of betrayal in the marriage, and her life she was over the edge. And that's what eventually brought it on. And so that we know that there's usually, after a while, a triggering event that activates the panic. Now, here's what we did. We had to deal with the root issues. We had to deal with things going on in her body. We had to get her strong physically again. She had to deal with some very difficult things at home. And she says she still had this fear of heights, as she described it. So we worked with her. And you remember those, or the elevators on the outside of the Space Needle that you can look out the window? She would never, ever have thought of doing that. She was renewed spiritually, she was strong physically, and her victory cruise, which we videotaped, was getting in an elevator, looking over at the edge there, and going up the Space Needle, waving at us down below. Realizing, yeah, there were missing pieces to my puzzle. I can do this. I can go and I can get back in that elevator, and I don't have to have fear that has paralyzed me. The enemy wants to use fear to paralyze us. So that's why, again, always a spiritual side. Okay, next one. Okay, I want to mention addiction. People who live with anxiety are especially prone towards getting into addictive behaviors. I know I mentioned that, but addiction, it's so easy to sit at home. I'm anxious, I'm on social media, I'm on my phone, and I don't know, maybe it's wine. Okay, I'm just gonna have a glass of wine. Oh, but I haven't drank alcohol for years. That's okay, I'll get some. And then you start off with one glass. Oh, so much better. And as time progresses, you know how many times we have worked with people go, well, no, it's a bottle now each night. I feel horrible in the morning, but man, it's a bottle to put me out now every night. And that's where it progressed. Or there's secret drinking during the day. The person in the workplace that had one of those little vodka bottles, and a coworker pulled out their desk drawer. And that was just where the empty ones were. They hadn't tossed those yet. Drinking throughout the day to deal with anxiety. I'm just saying, it's so easy to fall into this. And then we live in a state where cannabis or marijuana is legal. Bad idea. Bad idea. Somebody wasn't reading the science. And we know that cannabis use increases anxiety. And we know that at first a person starts to use it to lower anxiety, and over time, that THC builds up in the liver, and over time they get pretty toxic, and over time it has the opposite effect. There really is something, a cannabis psychosis. That is real. I have a developing brain. I have a male brain. My brain is growing in size and connections in my brain till about age 25. Sorry, it's just the way God made us, guys. Our brain is slower to develop. It's really true. And our brain is growing in physical size up until approximately age 25. We don't have as many connections between the hemispheres as you do. We got what's called a testosterone bath in the womb, and it destroys lots of connections between the brain. We don't have as many connections between the hemispheres as the female brain. That's the way it works. We're slower on certain things, and that's my excuse. No. It's like when we were raising our two sons, this whole brain science thing was very fascinating because, look, you know it. There's a boy brain and there's a girl brain. And they're different. And I go, who's doing all the research in brains and boys? And I've got to learn, because boys were getting 92% of the D's and F's in school. My boys were in a Christian private school. They still were not doing well. Boys, irregardless where you place them, if the education model doesn't change, the boys are still getting most of the discipline issues and most of the D's and F's. I go, how do we help our sons? What in the world is going on here? So I got connected with a Jewish friend, Michael Gurian, who's in Spokane, and he's written books on the topic of boy brains and girl brains, and the difference and what the science really says. And he's taken a lot of slack for his position. But you look at the scans, you look at the brains, you go, yeah, that's how God made us. It is, yeah. So a boy brain has something special called a nothing box. You ask the guy or the young man, what are you thinking about? What's the answer? Nothing. And the female says, how can you think about nothing? And the guy responds is, I don't know. Right? It's nothing. There's nothing. My wife still does it. What are you thinking about? Nothing. How do you think about nothing? I don't know. So we started to work with our sons, and they got real cute about it because they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was in my nothing box." What'd you say? The male brain has a nothing box, and really there's nothing in there. You've probably noticed it already. This is not new news. It's just a small box, though. Just a small box. But what we know is, for example, in the classroom, okay, the boy who may be anxious, he's not doing well, and he's sitting there, and he has a pencil, and he's thumping the kid in front of him constantly. Doesn't stop. Or he's fidgeting. He's fidgeting, and he can't seem to sit still. Somebody says, well, he's got hyperactivity, and he's attention deficit, and he's, what? If we change, and by the way, I love teachers because I've seen it work over and over, and God bless our teachers who have worked so hard to make it all work, and have so many things against them right now. So I take that same stiff, uncomfortable chair, and in the classroom, what are those bouncy gym balls? You know what I'm talking about? They're big balls, and you sit on them and you bounce. If a boy can compare movement with brain activity, what happens? They become less anxious. Movement accesses a different part of the brain. You see, the reason they're tapping their pencil is their brain goes into alpha waves and sleep really quick. They're trying to stay awake. There's a reason why we're doing that. They're bored quickly, trying to stay awake. We change it up for the boy. And at first, when they started doing this in classrooms, everybody was worried, well, it'd just be crazy. No, if the boy is taking a test, just let him move. Let him move. Just bounce up and down. Let them walk around their desk and sit back down and answer the question. Scores go up. Boys are doing better. You've got to pair movement. Okay, this is because we have way too many very anxious boys and kids who are not doing well. And part of it is how we're approaching them. And boys they want stimuli, so they need, gaming is especially not so great, but the stimuli and we can overstimulate the male brain. The average age to exposure to pornography on the internet now is about age 9. 9-year-olds being exposed to pornography. Goes right to the boy's brain. I fell into, because I think I was creating some anxious boys, because frustrated parent. I'm the dad. I should know this. I should be doing better. And I fell into all the traps. I'd get home. I'd say, sit down. We're going to talk. Because you hear about whatever happened during the day. The boy sits down. He's in front of you. And then I do the parent rant. Whatever it's about. You get pretty good at those parental rants. And then you say to your son, in my case, did you hear what I just said? What's the boy say? And then you make the big mistake. And you go, tell me what I said. And what's the boy say? I don't know. Their brain turned off 20 seconds into it.
if I take and do the same thing, and I take that young boy, and I give them a stick or a ball, and we're going for a walk, a boy will always make a weapon out of anything. In the book we did, Raising Boys by Design, Michael Garian, he looked at all the cultures, and in the culture of Nepal, where a young boy has never seen a weapon, they don't exist. A boy will make a weapon. They've never seen it. They'll make a bow and arrow, or they'll make something, a spear. They make a weapon. And so, if I want to have something really important to talk to my anxious son about, I gave him a stick, and we go for a short walk, and he's swinging that stick and probably hitting me a few times, and then breaking the stick and making a sword, but we're having a conversation, and it's accessing different parts of his brain, and the conversation is really different than that set-down lecture we just did. A boy needs a mediating object. If I had the same conversation, I had a little ball, we just throw the ball back and forth. Uses a different part of the brain. And so when we look at anxiety, our kids are living in an anxious culture. Let's be aware of that, and let's find different ways to reach them. The traditional girl brain is really different. Now, I don't have girls, so I have to be careful what I say. But you can sit down, chat. She can do all the talking, and that was a great conversation. Can't do that with the boy. It doesn't work. So think in terms of what are we teaching our kids about their futures in a culture that is death-oriented, in a culture where a traditional male or female values are not necessarily esteemed. Kids can learn anxiety really early. So let's talk about what we can do as adults if we're struggling with anxiety. And then we're going to do some Q&A. Number one, if we're anxious, and remember, anxiety means it's got a physical component. I'm going to begin by probably having a journal and asking God, I'm going to just pray, Lord, show me the missing pieces to the puzzle. Give me wisdom, give me discernment. I'm going to probably read a few Psalms. I'm just going to pray. And in my journal, I'm going to write 3 or 4 things down every day. I'm just going to start making some notes. Over the course of 30 days, I'm just going to, Lord, continue to show me. When my wife said to me last week, have you forgiven everybody for everything, Greg? I had to think. And I came back with a situation. I go, I would have never thought about it. But yeah, here's a person that I have no idea, but I felt really betrayed. But why would they do what they did? Yeah, I guess I'm not as good at this as I thought I was. So start to ask yourself, okay, the traits of a person with a sound mind. Forgiveness. Lord God, show me if I have any unforgiveness in my life from anyone, any situation that I thought was unfair. And just, again, we're talking about 30 days of 1 month of making notes. We're at the front end of May here. This is a perfect month to do this. And start to make notes. And ask God to reveal to you what it is you need to know if there's any unforgiveness. What have I just put over to the side? If you're waking up during the night with anxiety and sleep, what is your pre-sleep routine? What is the last thing you're putting in your mind at night? I have a little chair at home in the bedroom, and This is how simple I am. I have a Bible that stays at that chair, and I just make sure the last thing, if it's just a chapter or two, the last thing I'm putting in my mind before I lay down, attempting to go to bed at approximately the same time every night. There are exceptions to that, travel, etc. But I'm doing the same thing. I also stop drinking beverages at a certain time so my bladder doesn't get full during the night. And I have a routine. I have a rhythm and a routine. The last thing that's going to go in my mind is God's word. Then I'm going to go to bed. Setting up systems of routine that renew your mind, renewing our mind. Does some of it take a little while? Yeah. And then maybe for 2 weeks, do food diaries, do a food log. As silly as it sounds, but log everything that went in your mouth each day. Beverages, how many weird drinks you drank from the coffee shop, how many sugary muffins you ate, just logging everything, just for 2 weeks. And then go, okay, after 2 weeks, if I continue to do this, what will I look like over the next 5 years? What will I feel like? Is there anything about what I'm putting in my mouth that could be affecting my anxiety? Oh, yeah. Those 6 Diet Cokes a day, maybe not the best. But you begin to get an awareness. Anxious people do love the sweet and smooth. There was a very difficult time for me that I honestly thought I chose the wrong career. I was not practicing what I was preaching, and I could hardly wait to get home, sit down on the sofa, and enjoy my half gallon of ice cream too. I was doing the same thing my clients were doing. And I had a revelation I had to seriously change my life. And I think it took me a year to get back into shape physically, just rebuild physically. This was a while ago, but I remember it so well that I know if I'm starting to get over on the edge. And then, as silly as it sounds, I really do use 3x5 cards. I have them on my desk. Not always, but I have them in my pocket too. And there's times I just got to refocus my mind and spirit and say God's word out loud. Then, what about checking out what's going on physically? Am I low in my B vitamins? Do I have thyroid issues? Is there a pituitary issue? What's going on in my body physically? Are my hormonal levels, my testosterone, are things off so much that it's producing a physiological anxiety? What's my physiology doing? Amazing how certain things are changed or tweaked, what can happen. We do what we call, you've probably heard of this, but IV nutrient therapy. So our doctors will do blood work and look at things and may, not always, but may make a recommendation. And they put together an IV formula. Maybe it has amino acids in it to calm the brain. Maybe it's got B vitamins in it, whatever. Maybe it's got some zinc in it, magnesium. Getting enough magnesium in and calming the blood vessels, calming the heart. We've seen people with panic attacks go to nearly zero because physiology. giving the body what it needs, praying for wisdom. So look at the whole person. Look at relationships. Do I have a relationship in my life that's a significant stress point? Maybe there's emotional abuse. Maybe I have a supervisor, somebody at work, and this is a major thorn, and it's causing me great distress. And with that comes the anxiety. So do I have a person or people in my life? The little book I did on toxic people. Do you have toxic people in your life that are contributing to anxiety, maybe depression? Okay? And then we've got to do an honest check of where I am with anything escapism or addictive behaviors. That starts with alcohol to pills. Am I taking a medication that it says side effects, but side effects really are the effects? One of the effects is, might be anxious. Am I taking anything that could be contributing? So again, looking at all this, the environment. Do I have 3 to 5 people in my life that are trustworthy? They empower me. They believe in me. They'll pray for me and me with them. Do I have 3 to 5 people in my life that are my mighty fortress? They are a fortress for me. You see, I really struggled with the boy brain. I didn't do well in school, and I struggled all through junior high, first 2 years of high school, terrible struggle. Peer group struggles, wasn't positive for me. My parents sent me to a church camp. Anybody ever been sent to a church camp? I mean, I was sent. And there was the camp speaker. He showed a special interest in me and followed me around the whole week. Got to know me and started to say things like, Greg, I believe in you. I don't know how many times he said, I believe in you. At the end of this, because this was a turning point for my life, at the end of the week of this camp, it was like a cross-country run. And he kept saying, Greg, I think you ought to sign up and do that. I believe in you. I think I always said, no, I'm not a runner. I don't know why, but because he believed in me, that last day of camp, I lined up on that dirt road. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran. And I didn't look behind me, and all I could hear was, Greg, I believe in you, I believe in you. And I don't know, I was like Forrest Gump. Just kept running. I did not know at the time, but I was the first one to cross the finish line. I had never done a cross-country run. And he said, I believe in you. That was a turning point. All I needed was somebody in my life to believe in me. And he really meant it. And then, my senior year of high school, I was student of the year. I was doing things I never dreamed I could do. And probably indebted to him because I leaned towards the helping professions and mental health and counseling. I've never seen him since. I have no idea, but there was a person that said they believed in me. And it changed the course of my life. And that's what we need sometimes when there's anxiety. We need those 3, 5 people. We need those people that believe in us. And they're going to pray for us. They're going to believe that, I'm not bound with the stronghold of anxiety in my life indefinitely. And I'm willing to face and do whatever I need to do to have healing and recovery. But we've got to look at the whole person. And sometimes we need somebody that believes in us. And sometimes it's a mental health counselor who sincerely does. Other times it's a prayer group. Other times it's a best friend. The people that believe in you oftentimes are not family members. They may be, but oftentimes they're not. So, okay. I want to do a few questions. Is it all right if we do some questions and do our best with the answers? All right. Pastor Wyatt's got a running microphone. What's on your heart and mind as it relates to anxiety?
Can I ask the first question?
Wait, should we vote?
It's the privilege of being the pastor, I guess. On that slide of the healthy ways to deal with anxiety, you listed learning to say no and having boundaries as one of the ways to deal with it. Why is that so important when we're thinking about handling anxiety?
Such a great question. Thank you, Pastor. So the question is, why is it so important to have boundaries with anxiety? Because one of the things, if we don't, and boundaries get so misunderstood, because sometimes we act like we have to take care of everybody and we have to say yes to everything. You see, I had the helper's disease. I said yes to everything. And embarrassingly, worked 6 days a week and did all the wrong things. I didn't have good helper boundaries. A boundary will help preserve your well-being, because there's times where we have to say, oh, I would love to do that, but I'm sorry, that won't work out. Can I? And you offer them another solution. There's times where a person may, they don't understand boundaries, and saying no to them, they feel rejected. And there's times we take that risk, isn't there? Where, but we guide them to another resource. So, but boundaries really help identify where I end and start and where you end and start. If I don't have boundaries, see, I had a major crash, 1989. I had no boundaries. I did have the helper's disease. And I did say yes to everything because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And then it was regret, resentment, and ill health for me. So, anybody else? What are you thinking? Okay, here comes so we can hear you.
On your last slide, you mentioned procrastination. I've got a few unfinished projects. Got any ideas?
Procrastination. Procrastination and anxiety. Yeah, 2 reasons for procrastination usually. One is I don't do it because I can't do it perfectly, right? So I don't start something, or I have a lot of unfinished things. And we can get in, I learned in school the art of procrastination, because you wait till the last minute and then it's a huge motivator to get it done, right? That's not a good way to live. So the question behind procrastination is really, what's my beliefs around it? Am I not doing this because I can't do it perfectly? What's my beliefs around why I'm not doing it? Interesting question. Yes. Hello.
Hi, Greg. Oh, that's very loud. Sorry. Let me move it away. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've told us so far. Appreciate it. And I also wanted to ask you, in today's mental health landscape, there's a lot of talk about neurodivergence and things like that versus, what's the other term for, anyway, non-neurodivergent.
Sure.
But how does anxiety affect neurodivergent people differently? And if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who thinks they're neurodivergent or has been diagnosed as neurodivergent, what's one piece of advice that you might give them?
And tell me what
anxiety?
that means to you, because I notice that sometimes it just kind of means different things.
You mean neurodivergent or anxiety?
Yeah, for you.
Neurodivergent would be somebody who thinks and sees the world differently, I would say. So autism is a primary example that comes up.
Yeah.
ADHD as well, things like that.
Yeah. And I believe that's good. We need that. We need people who see things differently, right? So for me, it's a positive. how does that relate to anxiety? I'll make sure I understand the question.
So if you have a different mind, then theoretically the anxieties and stuff may affect you differently. I mean,
Sure.
maybe you're saying it doesn't. But so if somebody is neurodivergent, then how do they relate those anxieties to the rest of the world? Like, is there any specific techniques that they might try in order to fit in because they have this extra level of anxiety of feeling, separate from the majority of society?
Yeah, that's really good. And so then sometimes they separate themselves because they feel like they're already different, right? Yeah, I'm going to celebrate the difference more. But I hear you, and I think we've got to learn some practical skills for dealing with anxiety. Sometimes it's simple breathing. Sometimes it's how we learn not to be impulsive. Sometimes there's an impulsiveness. So I think we use something called DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, to teach people how to manage emotions when they may be on a spectrum. And we teach them new skills, and it takes 12 weeks. How to regulate emotions differently.
Thank you.
Most people can benefit from it. So there's some skills that can be taught. Okay, and the lucky winner is?
Well, I think you just answered it right there with this slide, because I was going to say you didn't mention anything about exercise.
Oh, yes,
and
good.
physical, but now I see it up there, so it's important, right?
I needed to mention that. That is super important. Physical activity, physical exercise needs to be on the plan for anxiety and for depression. Absolutely. And for me, I'm the kind of guy that has to sign up for something and show up. So thank you for mentioning that. There's a lot of reasons why that's really important. And I think it goes back to also just taking care of our temple, taking care of our bodies. Thank you.
So I know that there are some anxiety-related disorders such as, what do you call it? I'm sorry, I just had a brain fade. But they tend to have genetic components.
Sure.
And frequently they are treated with medication. Are you saying that there are ways of dealing with them? Tourette syndrome. Dealing with them that does not involve medication, that can alleviate it?
Or potentially a combination. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
and I know that Tourette syndrome and OCD often go, you see
Yes.
them both in the same family.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to look at there's SPECT scans of the OCD brain and watch where the blood flow is and where there's not blood flow, and how we can do things to influence that. One of the things that's being used right now more and more is hyperbaric chambers, the hyperbaric oxygen. So they're helping, and I've seen their scans, but before the brain and 300 sessions later is what I saw, and how the blood flow of the brain changed and how the person feels so much differently, how the brain was retrained for the blood flow. So hyperbaric oxygen and mental health issues is something you're going to see more about. Isn't that interesting? Pushes the oxygen in the brain and helps with the blood flow. It's fascinating.
So I know you can regulate, or not regulate, but you can relate anxiety to a certain place or person or thing. I was curious how to kind of break that, like how to deregulate those things.
So maybe something happened let me make sure I understand. Something happened in a certain place, and so when I go near that, I feel anxiety.
Yeah, or it's like stressful. Or
Stressful,
a
yeah.
lot of little things.
Yeah. We've had situations where a person was a victim of abuse, whatever form of abuse, and to get even near the place or home where that occurred was significant anxiety. But they got to the point where they could go and sit in front in the car and realize they were okay, because it's a part of confronting at times the past. But I think it has to be progressive. I think if I'm so, I call it dysregulated. I'm so dysregulated and I can't manage my emotion. I don't have emotion regulation. That's not the time to do that. But when I'm stronger, I need to show myself I can do this and be okay. And I think, too, there's prayer covering for that. Thank you for that good question. Yes?
Hello? I'm not sure. Oh, here I am. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I was next. I'm the kind of person who will want to read all of your books and then go to all of your seminars and go, okay, I can see a path. And I have multiple family members and people I'm thinking about, myself, for example. But I don't have that kind of time. And I probably don't have that kind of a brain that's going to absorb all of this stuff. What would it look like for somebody to engage with you while maybe considering some of your literature that wants to be the most efficient way through recovery or diagnosis and healing?
Sure, if it's anxiety, I would say get the book Anxiety Reset and the workbook and do the 12 weeks and see how you've done. After 12 weeks, am I making progress or not? And then I ask myself, do I need to get additional help or support? There's a level of anxiety that I think requires some expertise to work with, and maybe I need to look at what's going on in my body as well. But that's why we did the book and the workbook and the triumph over trauma and the workbook. But I always say, look, a book can give us a lot of good information, but we've got to engage with that information and we have to be able to apply it. If I have difficulty applying it and 3 months have passed, I may need to do something else. Hello.
Hi. So my question was basically, you were talking about boundaries, and I also struggle with helping everyone. And so I was wondering, how did you set proper boundaries without hurting the other person? Because I want to set boundaries too. I just don't know how a good way to do it.
I had to have help. Did you hear the question? Okay. So in my case, I was so poor at it that I had to give over my schedule to somebody else and had to give over had to listen to my wife and apply it. In my case. And I had to really allow accountability. So for me, it was a transparency of my schedule, and I had to have for me, exercise was part of it. I had to get a plan together, and I had to be accountable to others. So that, for me, accountability was such a huge deal. And also I got plugged in with in my case, with a group of men who now we've been meeting for so many years, where I have that level of accountability. So it all came through other relationships. And I had to have three or four people in my life who would be honest with me and tell me if I was going off course. And I had to ask, what do you see? Am I going off course? So I had to be open to that.
Okay, thank you.
I've been seeing this hand back here. Hello. And over here. Okay, we'll get you next. Yes.
Yes, you spoke about the difference of the boy's brain. Did
Yes.
you write a book about that, or can you recommend one?
There's a wonderful book I did not write called Boys and Girls Learn Differently by Michael Gurian. And then Michael Gurian and I wrote a book just for boys, Raising Boys by Design. And it is, no, it's not behind me. Raising Boys by Design, he deals the brain science, and then I deal with the faith aspect of it.
Thank you very much.
With all kinds of ideas how to reach boys. Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
So you spoke either earlier this morning or now about the lack of facilities that can help with mental health. And I have found in searching for one of my kids extra difficult with pediatrics. So for those who may have children who it's been suggested have anxiety, or you've seen that, or ADHD, do you have any suggestions for how we can help guide them through some of the things that to us make sense, like, okay, let's maybe don't drink 12 bottles of Surge before you go to sleep, but in 3, 4, 5-year-old vernacular, do you have insight or resources that you can share for that specific kind of area?
I think I may have, and I think there's some resources that I could send to you if you emailed and just said you were here at the info at A Place of Hope, and it will get to me, and then I can probably get that to you. Just some ideas for some resources.
Perfect, thank you.
Those are, the younger they are, the harder the resources, as you know. The harder the good resources. Anyone else? Okay, we got over here.
Hello, my name's Dan, and I'm dysfunctional. Well, I was brought up in a dysfunctional family. And what I've found, especially after I came to know Christ, that it's a benefit to have come from that experience.
Yes.
So, would you acknowledge that there's good things about being messed up?
That is really a good way to put that. There are good things about being messed up. It may bring us to Christ and totally change our life, right? And for some of us, we had to hit that rock bottom, which is different for everybody, but it brought us to a revelation that we can't do this alone, and we have a void in our life. Yes. Yes. And that's part of what keeps me going, because I see people's lives transformed by the power of Christ in their life. I see that. All right.
I've got a question for you. In our culture, we see, I'm in the sound booth, by the way.
Yes.
In our culture, we see cycles of technology, like a technological advancement will happen, for example, the 24-hour news cycle or social media, and a cart before the horse kind of situation emerges where the impact on our mental health is not seen until quite a bit later often, where anxiety spirals happen. For example, we're just seeing it now with social media, the very negative effects that it has on our mental health 15 years later. In your opinion, because we're just at the start of it, what would you predict as far as AI is concerned? How should we be thinking about that? What kind of safeguards or protections should we give ourselves as we start to engage with this new technology?
I'm so glad somebody asked about AI, because there is the prediction it will replace counselors. The AI gets to know you. Wow. Well, I think if even 5 years from now, what is going to happen? Well, I don't believe the AI is going to be able to replace the human spirit and what people need in that interaction and seeking help. Could be a great resource for some information, absolutely. And I was talking with a college professor who we were talking about the AI and students who have attempted to write their papers with AI, right? And he goes, they don't know it, but we've got some pretty good programs that detect this. And so I tell my students right up front, if you use AI in this class and you turn it in, it's an automatic fail. And so there's a place for it. But when we think about that, God designed us for human interaction, right? And we need each other, and there's something that happens in the spirit when we're together, and AI will never have the Holy Spirit. It won't work. And so, but I think there's going to be a lot of people misled. I think it's a part of the misleading. Can it be used for great good? Yes. But do you think there's people that this is the answer, and it's really a void answer, isn't it? So this is I think could potentially be a very dangerous area. On the flip side, that could be really helpful for gathering a lot of information. But we're already overwhelmed with information, aren't we? So, okay, we need to wrap up. And I just wanted to first of all say thank you for being here with me today. Thank you. So, we really need to thank your pastor, because this is their idea to do this. And I know as it relates to mental health, this is kind of just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much. But I don't want anybody to leave feeling like there's not hope. Please know. And the reason why I'm here is, and what keeps me going is, I do see there is hope. And just know that. I don't want anybody to leave with any despair. Hang in there with us. And Pastor, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jantz. Thank you so much for being here. I want to let you get back out in the sun. Please stop at that book table, check that out, see if there's a resource there that might be of use to you. Also, I've had a number of people ask, is this recorded? Can I send this to someone? If you follow our church's podcast, it's called Native Exiles. You can find it on our website, alderwood.cc/messages. We're going to put the recording of this in that feed. And I also want to tell you, if you're interested, if you want to keep diving into this, we've been in a series on that podcast for a number of months and have 6 or 7 different interviews with Dr. Jantz was one of them, and a number of other leaders in the field that are really thinking through this from a biblical worldview. So, a ton out there, and hope you'll check that out as well. I'll hang around for a couple minutes, happy to talk to anyone. You might be able to snag Greg before he heads out the door, but thank you for being here. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us today in this bonus episode of Native Exiles. If this was something that you appreciated, there is so much more content, so many more conversations that we've just had with mental health experts. I hope you'll scroll through the feed and see what you find there. Go ahead and share this with a friend if you don't mind, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Native Exiles.